Part 129. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1281. I came to Grandpa Zhong tremblingly, and looking at his peaceful face, I felt sad. I knelt down on the ground and kowtowed to Grandpa Zhong 3 times. I want to cry, but I can't. Ever since my family suffered a huge change, I vowed to become stronger and protect the people I wanted to protect. But after working hard for so long, someone still left me after all. If I could be stronger, maybe Grandpa Zhong would not die. Lusu. Lusu. You are still the same as before, doing nothing. Zhang Xiai and others stood aside, not knowing how to comfort me. At this moment, I felt dizzy, my vision began to blur, and I fell to the ground with a plop. The overdraft of my body and the sadness in my heart made me unable to hold on anymore, and I completely passed out. In a daze, I saw Su Tianqian, and she sat quietly next to me. Xiao Su, don't be sad, you have done enough. Su Tianqian said softly in his dream. The sadness that had been suppressed in my heart finally burst out at this moment. I fell into Su Tianxian's arms and burst into tears. Tianqian, I am still the same as before. Nothing can be changed. I can only watch the people I care about leave me. Grandpa, Grandma, Mom, and Dad, they all died because of me. I thought I had the power to protect everything, but then, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't protect anything. Su Tianqian stretched out his hand and gently stroked my head, his movements as gentle as water. Xiao Su, I know you are in pain right now, but you have to cheer up. You still have many things worth protecting. If you fall, then, who will protect me in the future? I raised my head and looked at Su Tianqian. She was still so gentle and incredibly beautiful. She smiled brightly at me and said, Xiao Su, are you right? I looked at her blankly. There are too many burdens on me. If I really fall, what should Su Tianqian do? What should Nai Dai do? What should Miao Fengluan do? So, you gotta cheer up. Su Tianxian's figure in the dream gradually faded away. I slowly opened my eyes, and what I saw was the ceiling of the bedroom. Great, you're finally awake. Princess Longji's voice rang in my ears. I looked around, not only her, Cai Dai, Jins, Ruoheng, Zhang Xiai, everyone related to me were all surrounding me. I struggled to sit up and asked, where is Grandpa Zhong's body? Zhang Xiai replied, the lobby on the first floor. After hearing this, I was about to get up and check, but Zhang Xiai stopped me and handed me a letter. This is what Mr. Zhong left for you. I took the letter and opened it. It contained what Grandpa Zhong wanted to say to me. Xiao Su, words are like words. When you read this letter, Grandpa Zhong will have left. There is no need to be sad. My life is over and death will happen sooner or later. I, Zhong Zhengling, have spent my entire life slaying demons and being alone. Fortunately, I met your grandfather, and instead of becoming a sworn brother, I finally have some connection with this world. What surprises me even more is being able to witness your growth. I remember when Grandpa Zhong saw you for the first time, you had all your senses lost and all your limbs destroyed. I advised your grandpa to give up and not to cause trouble that you shouldn't cause. But your grandpa was extremely firm and said that all this should have been done. It's destiny, and he believes you have the ability to change the world. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1282. I doubt your grandfather's words. However, your grandfather told me that he and I are brothers, and you are his grandson, and naturally you are also my grandson. If anything happens to him in the future, I hope I can protect you. I didn't take this sentence to heart. After all, your grandpa is so powerful, how could he leave? But later, in order to help you regain your 5 senses and limbs, Your grandfather spent his whole life cultivating and became an ordinary person. He wanted you to live a peaceful life, so he didn't teach you any spells. But, unfortunately, the things in the coffin discovered your existence. When I learned the news, all your family members died. I hate myself a little. Why couldn't I rush back to your grandfather as soon as possible? By your side, you can also protect your family. After your grandfather leaves, I want to accept you as my disciple, but I can feel at ease with that girl Su Tianxian by your side. Seeing this, my eyes became moist without realizing it. I continued reading. Xiao Su, don't be sad after Grandpa Zhong leaves. This is what I have to go through. I have two things I need you to do for Grandpa Zhong. The first thing is that I have found out the locations of the two corpse-raising grounds. Grandpa Zhong hopes that you will destroy those two corpse-raising grounds, because only by destroying those two corpse-raising grounds can the citizens of Tianfu City be safe and sound. The second thing is to cremate Grandpa Zhong's body and let the ashes fly everywhere with the wind. Grandpa Zhong has been guarding the yin and yang worlds throughout his life, and he hopes to continue to guard him after his death. Also, Xiao Su, no matter what happens, don't lose hope of living, because you have the hope of your grandfather and me. We both always believe that you can change the world and the underworld. Life, separation, and death are the laws of nature. There is nothing worth worrying about. Everyone has to die. Why can't I do this? The letter ends here. I took a deep breath to calm the grief in my heart. Yes. There are too many burdens on my body, I can't just fall down. Zhang Shi let out a long sigh and said, Mr. Zhong has been upright throughout his life. He has been slaying demons all the time. He is a person who truly carries the word righteousness. I said to Zhang Shi, create Grandpa Zhong's body. Zhang 11 nodded. I did not hold a funeral for Grandpa Zhong. After cremating his body, I carried the urn to the rooftop of Jiyun Hall. I looked around, and everywhere I looked, there was peace. This was probably the scene that Grandpa Zhong wanted to see. I opened the urn. A gust of breeze blew up the ashes and scattered them everywhere. Grandpa Zhong has been running for the right path all his life, and he will protect the world after his death. Now that Grandpa Zhong has passed away, I must complete the things he insists on. In the evening, Princess Longji came to me. She looked at me and said hesitantly, Don't be sad. Fate comes and goes. Life is impermanent. No one can change anything. You can only cherish what you have, live in the moment. I nodded and said, I understand. While I was talking to Princess Longji, Hua Xiu also came over. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1283. I asked, Hua Xiu, are you injured? Hua Xiu shook his head slightly and replied, Brother Emperor, I'm fine. I looked at Hua Xiu with apologetic eyes and said, I'm sorry, it's my brother's fault that you have been wronged. Hua Xiu smiled, came to my side, and said, Brother, I don't blame you for all this. You are still the same as before. No matter what happens, you always protect me. Princess Longji said to Hua Xiu, Now, don't hide it from Lu Su. Your injury is very serious and you must find the coffin bacteria to recover. I looked at Hua Xiu reproachfully and said, Hua Xiu, how could you hide this from your brother? Hua Xiu stuck out his tongue and replied, Brother Huang, I don't want to see you working so hard. I can just look for the coffin fungus myself. I reached out my hand, rubbed Hua Xiu's head, and said, Silly girl. Human head fungus, also known as coffin fungus, eats too many delicacies during life. After a person dies, there is still ginseng gas. After being buried, the ginseng gas condenses and persists. As time goes by, the corpse in the coffin spits out fungus stalks from the mouth. Stretching out of the lid, bacteria formed on the head of the coffin. Coffin fungus is a great tonic for zombies, but it will take at least 100 years of coffin fungus to heal Hwashiu's injuries. Ordinary coffin fungi are easy to find, but this century-old coffin fungus is difficult to find. Princess Longji said to me, "You must not delay the search for the coffin fungus. Maybe your sister will be able to break through and become an immortal bone after eating the coffin fungus for 100 years." When I heard the news, I felt happy and said, "Okay, I will pay attention to the coffin fungus." Hwashiu can break through and become the immortal bone, which is undoubtedly a good thing for her. While we were talking, Xiangyi walked in, holding a bottle of liquor in his hand. "Lu Su, I'm here to drink with you." Although Xiangyi is a ghost, he does a lot of drinking, eating and having sex with female ghosts. I also knew that he came to me to comfort me, so I didn't refuse. Xiangyi and I sat opposite each other. Xiangyi picked up his wine glass, took a sip, and said to me, "Lu Su, you don't need to be too sad about Zhong Jingling's death. His lifespan has expired and he should have passed away 2 months ago. However, he is Zhong Kui's descendant. He begged the underworld for mercy and lived for 2 months." I nodded and asked, "Will Grandpa Zhong's soul go to the underworld after his death?" Xiangyi shook his head and said, "No, Zhong Kui's descendants dedicated their souls to this world. After death, their souls will dissipate in this world. The head of the Taoist sect took away Grandpa Zhong's soul. After I killed the head of the Taoist sect, Grandpa Zhong's soul should have dissipated in this world." I sighed slightly. My heart was so complicated that I could only suppress my inner boredom by drinking. Xiangyi said, "Lu Su, you need to adjust your state and emotions as soon as possible. The current situation in the underworld is extremely serious. Emperor Fengdu's only trump card is you. If something happens to you, the underworld will definitely change. At that time, the yin and yang of this world will be chaotic, and people will die without ghosts. Maybe those evil ghosts in the 18th level of hell will escape, and then the whole world will be in chaos." I nodded and replied, "Don't worry, I'll be fine." Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1284. I thought for a while and said, "If anything happens in the underworld, please feel free to contact me. Now I just hope that the changes in the underworld will happen later. Because I still have to destroy those 2 corpse places. In addition, the remaining 3 zombie ancestors still need to be dealt with by me." Xiangyi nodded, and he and I kept drinking until midnight, until we finally stopped drinking and was helped into the room by Hwashiu. The next day, I had a splitting headache. I guess it was because I drank too much last night. When I came to the lobby of Ji Yuntang, I saw colorful butterflies chasing Xiao He all over the room. If you have the ability, you have a bad mouth. If you have the ability, stop. Let's see if I don't tear your mouth apart today. Cai Dai shouted angrily at Xiao He. When Xiao He saw me appearing, he quickly hid behind me. "Boss! Help me! Help me!" Kadi put her hands on her hips and pointed at the little black finger behind my back. "Damn crow! Why do you have a mouth?" Xiao He corrected, "I am a golden crow, not a crow." "Shit! You are the crow." The 2 guys started bickering again, and what I heard was that one was louder than the other. I said, "You 2, stop arguing. It gives me a headache." Cai Dai snorted and stopped talking to Xiao He. After breakfast, I found Hwashiu and said, "Hwashiu, come with me, and I will take you to find the coffin fungus." Hwashiu asked in confusion, "Where to find it?" I replied, "Yong'an village." Yong'an village is one of the 2 corpse raising places. The places where corpses are raised are often very yin-wai, and are the most likely to breed coffin fungus. Maybe I can find it this time. Good. As soon as I turned my head, I saw Princess Longji leaning against the doorframe. She looked at me with a smile and said, "Want to go out?" I nodded, and Princess Longji said, "I'll go with you too." I didn't refuse. With Princess Longji by my side, I can help a lot. Yong'an village is located near Tianfu City. The village is somewhat remote and I can only drive there. Just when he was ready to leave, Zhang Xiai suddenly appeared in front of the gate of Ji Yuntang. Seeing that I was about to go out, he asked with some confusion, "Where are you going?" I explained to Zhang Xiai that we were going to Yong'an village. After hearing this, Zhang Xiai's expression changed slightly and he said, "Yong'an village, outsiders cannot enter." "Why?" Zhang Xiai replied, "The customs of that village are very strange. If you are not from their village, you are not allowed to enter at all. However, I have a way." I quickly asked what I could do. Zhang Xiai replied, "A few days ago, a villager from Yong'an village went out to look for Mr. Yin Yang. He said that a respected old man in their village had passed away. He was looking for a good cemetery and happened to find me. I can go to Yong'an village with you and destroy the corpse ground under the pretext of observing Feng Shui." After hearing this, I said, "That's okay." Then, I drove to Yong'an village with Zhang Xiai, Princess Longji and Hua Xiu. On the way, Zhang Xiai told me about this village in detail. The customs in this village are very strange. The funeral method is secondary burial. The so-called secondary burial means that the bones of the deceased are buried twice or more, most of which are reburied. This burial custom is extremely ancient. Since the bones usually buried without skin and flesh are mostly buried in different places, it is also known as bone-moving burial, bone-washing burial, and bone-picking burial, etc. For some reason, I always feel that this Yong'an village is not as simple as imagined. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1285. In the evening, we arrived at Yong'an village. Zhang Xiai is right, this village is really weird. There was actually someone guarding the entrance to the village. Hua Xiu looked at Yong'an village in front of him, frowned, and said, "Brother, the corpse spirit here is so strong." Hua Xiu is right. Just standing at the entrance of the village, you can feel the corpse energy rising to the sky. Moreover, this is the time when crops grow most luxuriantly, but the crops near Yong'an village are withered and yellow, without any trace of green. I whispered, "This village is very strange, we must be careful." Princess Longji said nonchalantly, "What are you afraid of?" "What are you afraid of?" "As long as I am here, I will definitely protect you." I looked at Princess Longji, rolled my eyes at her, and said, "Stop talking nonsense. You can only use 20% of your strength here. If you violate the laws of heaven, you will suffer the consequences." Princess Longji put her hands on her hips, a little unconvinced. "What's wrong with 20%? Do you believe that I can crush you to death with just one finger?" I nodded repeatedly and replied, "Yes, yes. You are the most powerful. You are a goddess. You must be more powerful than us mortals." Princess Longji suddenly lost her temper when she saw my yin and yang. She was not as quiet and gentle as Miao Fengluan, but had a very hot temper. She took a step forward, put her left hand on her hips, and grabbed my ear tightly with her right hand, and said angrily, "Lu Su, you dare to yin and yang with me? I ask you, if it weren't for me, would you have escaped from Yaokai?" Princess Longji showed no mercy at all and pulled my ears until it hurt. I was wrong, I was wrong. I hurried to Qiran. Only then did Princess Longji let go of her hand angrily. I was a little speechless in my heart. Fairies and goddesses are all full of fairy spirit, but Princess Longji looks like a shrew. Zhang Xiai led us into the village. As soon as we arrived at the entrance of the village, The villager walked up. The villagers were wearing coarse shorts and had dark skin, looking at us warily. "Who are you?" Zhang Shi stepped forward to negotiate with him. "I am the Feng Shui master invited by village chief Huang." The villagers were stunned, looked Zhang Shi up and down, and then said to Zhang Shi, "Just wait, I will ask village chief Huang." Zhang 11 nodded. The villagers left, and when they came back, there was an old man with silver hair following them. The old man was about 80 years old, with white hair, a stooped waist, and a walking stick in his hand. He would stop to catch his breath every few steps. Village chief Huang came to us, looked at Zhang Shi, and asked, "Are you Master Zhang's apprentice?" Zhang Shi nodded. Master Zhang in village chief Huang's mouth should refer to Zhang Shi's master. "They are." Village chief Huang looked at us. Zhang Shi said, "They are my friends and they are here to help." Village chief Huang hummed and said, "Come on to the village. I'll arrange a place for you. As for finding the cemetery, just wait until daytime tomorrow." With that said, village chief Huang walked towards the village, and we followed closely. The village was lifeless, and the dirt roads were full of paper money. Not only that, black and white mourning cloths were hung at the door of every house, and the air was filled with the strong smell of burning. I winked at Zhang Shi. Zhang Shi understood the idea, coughed softly, and asked village chief Huang, "Village chief, what's going on in the village? Why are there mourning cloths hanging in every house?" You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1286. Village chief Huang let out a long sigh and said, "It was Mr. Hu from our village who passed away. Mr. Hu was highly respected in our village. His death made the villagers very sad, so they spontaneously paid homage to him." Zhang Shi nodded and said a word of condolences. Afterwards, village chief Huang took us to his home. As I walked, I heard the harsh sound of Suana in my ears, and people were moving on the road not far away. When I walked in, I saw that someone was holding a funeral, and I guess it was Mr. Hu. Many villagers came to attend Mr. Hu's funeral. Some wore sackcloth and mourning, some wore mourning hats, and some had white mourning cloths tied around their shoulders. Everyone's face showed a very sad expression. I'm a little curious, what did Mr. Hu do during his lifetime, and how could he be so respected by these villagers? When the villagers saw us outsiders, they all showed wary expressions, obviously not welcoming us. The village chief chatted with these villagers for a while and then took us to his home. Village chief Wang's home is next door to Mr. Hu's, and you can clearly hear the noise coming from next door when you stay in the yard. Guys, please stay here for now and don't go out if you have nothing to do. The people in our village have a bit of a weird personality and we don't welcome outsiders to avoid getting into any trouble. Zhang 11 nodded. Afterwards, village chief Huang left in a hurry and went to help at Mr. Hu's funeral. We came to the house and Zhang Shi asked me if I had found anything. I shook my head and replied, although the corpse energy in this village is strong, it is not a place to raise corpses. I think the place to raise corpses should be near the village. We will go to see the Feng Shui tomorrow and then look for the place to raise corpses. Zhang 11 nodded, and I added, we have to be careful about those villagers. I always feel that they are a bit weird. As for what is weird, I can't tell. Everyone nodded in agreement. Hua Xiu stood in front of the window, her eyebrows slightly furrowed and her expression unusually serious. I stepped forward and asked, "What's wrong?" Hua Xiu pointed at the willow tree in the yard and said, "Brother Emperor, there seems to be a corpse under that tree." Hearing this sentence, I was slightly startled and looked in the direction Hua Xiu pointed. There is a huge willow tree in the yard, which grows very lushly, with green willow leaves and thick trunk, which is very full of vitality. I asked, Huashiu, are you sure? Huashiu nodded and replied, I'm sure. Huashiu is a zombie and is more sensitive to corpse energy than us. I pondered for a moment and said, let's just wait and see what happens. Don't cause trouble. Our main goal is to find the place where the corpse is raised. What happens to this village has nothing to do with me. My goal is to find the corpse place and destroy it. Huashiu nodded. Soon, night fell and we went back to our room to rest after dinner. Zhang Xiai and I share a room, and Huashiu and Princess Longji share a room. In the middle of the night, Zhang Xiai was lying on the side sleeping soundly, but I was not asleep. I vaguely heard rustling sounds coming from the yard. I got up, came to the window, and looked into the courtyard. The moonlight poured down, illuminating the whole yard brightly, and the rustling sounds in his ears became clearer. I followed the sound and saw that the soil under the big willow tree was crawling crazily. From time to time, the soil was lifted up. I frowned. Could it be that the corpse buried in the ground was causing trouble? Does he want to crawl out again? Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1287. I woke up Zhang Xiai, and he asked in a daze, what's wrong? I made a silencing gesture at him, and then led him to the window. That is to say, after I called Zhang Xiai for a while, the body buried under the tree had crawled out of the soil. In the shadow of the straight willow tree, his appearance could not be clearly seen, only the outline of a human figure could be seen. The figure stood under the tree for about 5 minutes, then wandered from the shadow of the tree to the moonlight. By the moonlight, I could clearly see the man's appearance. It was a man in his early 20s. His skin was ulcerated and his bones were exposed to the air. In addition, the air was filled with a disgusting rancid smell. He walked unsteadily toward the door. Zhang Xiai frowned and asked me, should we follow up and take a look? I lowered my head in thought and said, I wonder if you found a problem when you entered the village. Zhang Xiai asked doubtfully, what's the problem? I raised my head and replied in a serious tone, there are no young adults in this village, they are all old people. As soon as these words came out, Zhang Xiai was stunned on the spot. It seems so. Since entering this village, I have not seen a young person, only old men and women who are stumbling and over 50 years old. I said to Zhang Xiai, let's go, the two of us will follow and take a look. With that said, the two of us walked quietly through the yard. The dirt road in the village was quiet, with no one around, only the howling wind. The paper money scattered on the ground during the day was now blown up by the wind, creating a small whirlwind on the dirt road. The corpse walked under the moonlight, swaying towards Mr. Hu's yard. Just when Zhang Xiai wanted to follow him, I quickly grabbed him and hid him in the corner. Zhang Xiai looked at me doubtfully, and I stretched out my finger to point not far away. He looked in the direction I pointed. The roads in Yong'an village extend in all directions, and every main road has branch intersections. At this moment, countless figures are moving in those intersections. In the blink of an eye, corpses of various types walked from the intersections to the main road. Under the moonlight, these corpses were all rotting and smelly. The corpses were all in their early 20s. The corpses were lined up, heading towards Hu's hometown. There were so many of them, maybe 1,000 if not 800. Zhang Xiai asked in a low voice, what's going on with these corpses? They obviously have no souls, but they can walk. I pondered for a moment and said, there is probably something attracting them. Let's go up and take a look later. Zhang 11 nodded. Zhang Xiai and I returned to the head of Huangkan village. Because village chief Wang's house is next door to Mr. Hu, the two of us can check the situation of Mr. Hu's house by climbing over the wall. Looking at the wall that was almost as high as two people, Zhang Xiai asked, what do we think? I looked at Zhang Xiai with a smile. Zhang Xiai's throat squirmed and he asked tentatively, You don't want to step on my shoulders, do you? I laughed, reached out and patted Zhang Xiai on the shoulder, and said, sorry to trouble you. Zhang Xiai reluctantly squatted down and whispered, really, why don't you let me step on your shoulders? At this moment, there were dull footsteps behind me. I felt a chill in my heart. I turned around suddenly and saw Huaxiu and Princess Longji walking over. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanba. Chapter 1288. When I saw it was the two of them, I let out a long sigh of relief. Princess Longji asked, what are you two doing here if you don't sleep in the middle of the night? I told them both exactly what I had just seen. After listening to my narration, Huaxiu pondered for a moment and said, there should be a corpse king in this village. Hearing this sentence, I suddenly understood. A corpse king naturally has the ability to command thousands of corpses. But why did that zombie king call so many zombies? Thinking of this, I quickly squatted down Zhang Xiai, stepped on his shoulders, and then Zhang Xiai stood up. The combined height of the two of us is higher than the wall. However, I can only stick my head out. Even so, I can clearly see the situation in the yard. There is a black coffin placed in the yard. Countless corpses surrounded the black coffin, and the number of corpses was spread throughout the Hu family courtyard. At this time, dark clouds suddenly formed in the night sky, covering the stars and the bright moon, and the world fell into darkness. About 30 seconds later, a beam of moonlight suddenly penetrated the dark clouds and shone directly on the black coffin. Immediately afterwards, the lid of the black coffin began to tremble slightly, and the corpses around him fell to their knees and worshipped towards the black coffin. Bang! The coffin lid on the black coffin was opened by a huge force. A figure sat upright from the coffin. When I saw clearly the appearance of the person in the coffin, I was stunned on the spot. What kind of old man is this? He is clearly one of the four ancestors of zombies, Yinggo. How come he is here? Just when I was confused, Yinggo slowly stood up from the coffin, and then looked around coldly at the corpses. The next moment, Yinggo jumped out of the coffin and opened his arms. Immediately afterwards, I saw black mist emerging from the corpse, and then converging towards Yinggo's body. He is absorbing corpse energy. After the corpses entered Yinggo's body, only the white skeletons of those originally rotting corpses were left. Seeing this, I seemed to understand something, and in order to alert others, I chose not to continue reading. I jumped back to the ground, gave a few people a wink, and we went back inside. Zhang Xiai asked, Lu Su, what did you see? I told everyone exactly what I saw. After hearing this, everyone fell into silence. After a while, Huaxiu said, Brother Huang, why do you think Yinggo did this? I lowered my head and thought again, and said, Daemon has reached a cooperation with the four ancestors of zombies. Daemon raises corpses for the four ancestors of zombies for them to absorb. Now that Daemon has been eliminated by me, these zombies have little effect on the four ancestors of zombies. What really attracts the four ancestors of zombies is the corpse energy on his corpses. Zhang Xiai asked at this time, then why did Yinggo go out to find a feng shui master to choose a tomb for him? I pondered for a moment and said, these villagers probably don't know that the body in the coffin was swapped. Zhang Xiai asked again, why? I replied, you also told me before that the burial method of this Yong'an village villager is a secondary burial. The corpse we just saw should have been buried once. After the body has completely decomposed, the bones are buried. But, I don't understand why they bury their relatives in their own yard. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanba. Chapter 1289. This is the thing that puzzles me the most. Although it is a second burial, it cannot be so casual. Besides, it is not good for future generations to bury the deceased in the yard. Huashiu lowered his head in thought. After a moment, he raised his head and said to me, "Brother Emperor, what we see is not a zombie, but a corpse manipulated by Yingo. These corpses were not raised, but they were buried in their own homes to increase resentment. Once the resentment reached a certain level, the corpses would be raised. Once the corpses were raised, they would kill their closest relatives, and then suck its blood and make yourself stronger." I suddenly realized that after death, only when a person has resentment in his heart can he die without being stiff. Where does the resentment come from? Unfilial descendants, unfavorable life, or obsessions in the heart will aggravate the resentment. Take the movie Mr. Zombie as an example. The first thing Mr. Ren had to do after picking up the corpse was to kill Ren Ting Ting and Ren Fa. Mrs. Ren killed Ren Fa and sucked his blood, and his moral character soared. The same goes for the corpses in the village. After hearing this, Zhang Xi asked with some confusion, "Since we know that corpses will be picked up and loved ones will be harmed, but the people in Yong'an village still bury the corpses at home, isn't that asking for death?" Zhang Xi's question is also what I have in mind. I thought again and said, this matter should be related to Yinggo. I don't know what means he used to let the villagers of Yong'an village bury the bodies in the yard. If we want to know the answer to this matter, we can only find the villagers look for. While we were talking, dull footsteps suddenly came from outside the yard. I tiptoed to the window and saw the body that had gone out just now come back. He came to the tree, jumped into the pit where he had been buried, and buried himself. Seeing this, Zhang Xi asked, "What should we do?" I replied, "This matter cannot be rushed. Let's wait until tomorrow to see if we can get any useful information from the villagers." Everyone nodded in agreement, and then Princess Longji and Huashiu returned to the room. Early the next morning, the harsh sound of Suana suddenly sounded in my ears. I woke up instantly, got dressed and walked out of the room. Village Chief Huang, wearing a filial piety hat, said to us, "You guys have already prepared breakfast. After breakfast, I will take you to Mr. Hu's funeral to have a look, and then we will look for a suitable tomb." I nodded, and after breakfast, we arrived at Hu's home. People were coming and going throughout the yard, and everyone had a look of grief on their faces. The yard was filled with wreaths, lanterns, paper figurines, and other funeral supplies. We met Mr. Hu's wife, Mrs. Li. Mrs. Li looked haggard and had white hair. However, I did not see any sadness on her face. Instead, she was full of ashes and numbness. I stepped forward and asked, "Mrs. Li, didn't Mr. Hu choose a cemetery for himself before he died?" Old man Li slowly raised his head, his eyes dull and numb, and her voice was extremely hoarse. "I have chosen." I continued to ask, "Since we have chosen it, why do we still need to look for it?" Mrs. Li glanced at me and was about to speak when she was interrupted by Village Chief Huang. "Guys, you don't need to ask her. She has some brain problems and can't remember too many things. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me." Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1290. Something wrong with your head? I looked at Mrs. Li. Apart from being a little haggard, she looked normal. But Village Chief Huang said that there was something wrong with her head, which meant that there was no 300 taels of silver in this place. Obviously, this old lady Li knows something. I nodded without saying anything. Village Chief Huang took us away from here. Before leaving, Mrs. Li looked at my back and hesitated to speak. This made me even more certain that she knew something. After leaving Hu's hometown, Princess Longji came to me and whispered in my ear, "I just felt the aura of drought in that old lady's body." Drought? I frowned. Could it be that Drought Demon, one of the 4 ancestors of zombies, is also here? At this time, I recalled the scene of withered crops outside the village. Not only the crops, but also the river in the village was dry. Poetry Dia Yun Han once recorded, "The drought is so cruel that it feels like burning." There are two rumors about the origin of drought demon. The first one originated in the Huangdi period. Huangdi fought with Chu and sent the goddess Ba to participate in the battle. The goddess Ba wears green clothes and can emit extremely strong light and heat. She came to the front of the battle and exerted her magical power. The wind, rain, and fog immediately dissipated, and Huangdi finally captured and killed Qiyu. The second type is described in Han Ba in the first volume of Zi Baiyu. Han Ba is in the shape of a raccoon with loose hair and can walk on one foot. Yuan Mei's Su Zi Bulletin Yu also said, the corpse first turns into a drought monster, and then changes into a Jian. In other words, the first type of rumor says that Hanba is a goddess, while the second type of rumor says that Hanba is a monster. Moreover, there are many folk legends about drought demons, from which customs such as driving drought bone piles and burning drought demons to pray for rain are derived. I looked at Princess Longji and asked, "Are you sure?" Princess Longji nodded with certainty and said, "Yes, Yinglong and Ba have established extraordinary merits, but they have also lost their divine power and can never return to the sky." Yinglong stayed in the south of the human world, and from then on the south was flooded with water and rain. Ba stayed in the north, and from then on the north was flooded with drought. After I became a god, I traveled around the world and saw her once. I knew her aura very clearly. However, I haven't seen her since. I heard that she was sealed. My expression became extremely serious. If drought demon was really here, it would be troublesome. Han Ba is different from the other three zombie ancestors. This one existed during the Emperor's period. In terms of Taoism alone, Han Ba's strength should be higher than the other three zombie ancestors. I pondered for a moment and said, in this case, I will sneak away later to find that old lady Li to get some information, and you will follow village chief Huang to find the tomb. Remember, when searching for the tomb, you must pay attention. The location of the burial ground. Princess Longji nodded. Village chief Huang took us away from the village. I found an opportunity to sneak away and return to the village again. It's not easy to see MRSLI. These villagers are wary of outsiders like us. I have to find a way to sneak into the Hu family. If Miao Fengluan were here, things would be much easier to handle by using her ability to hide. Wait, Shinayan. I suddenly thought of the breath concealing technique, which can temporarily conceal my breath and allow me to enter a state of invisibility for a short period of time. The principle of the art of hiding is to blind others. Thinking of this, I used the art of concealment, and a faint white light enveloped me, and I walked towards the Hu family.